Vlog 26. Hey guys, what is up? DJ's Man here, back in another video, and yes, I am finally done with my third semester of college. You know, normally the semester just flies by, but it's those last few weeks that really kind of start to crawl. But you know, I'm finally done. You know, as soon as I was done with my last exam, I went and got my favorite sandwich from Subway, which happens to be the meatball marinara. I got myself some of their cookies because their cookies are the bomb. You know, I came home, found out that a couple of my favorite YouTubers had put out some new videos, so I decided to watch those while eating my favorite Subway. So I was eating my favorite sandwich from Subway while watching some of my favorite YouTubers. So you know, my break is already starting off awesome, and you know, I just have so much planned for myself over these next few weeks that I'm off. You know, I got like a bunch of anime I want to catch up on. Well, yeah, I got to catch up on some anime. I want to start up some new anime. There's some manga I want to catch up on. You know, I want to catch up on my video games, catch up on my, you know, television shows. I want to make, you know, some more YouTube videos, because you guys notice I've been good with keeping up with at least putting out one video, at least one video every week. So, pat on the back for me, but I plan on making some more videos so I can be more consistent like that. You know, this is just such a great break so far, but that isn't exactly what this video is about. Here I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk to you guys, kind of do a little retrospective of my third semester of college so far, and really just talk about, well, not so far since I'm done with it, go ahead and talk about it, and just pretty much list from my easiest class up to my hardest class. So let's go ahead and get started. So I ended up taking 5 classes this time around. So my easiest class, coming in at number 5, is Geography 200. And what we basically did in that class is basically all the stuff that you learned back in high school, but more in detail and more on a college level. Like we learned about, you know, wind patterns, tornadoes, earthquakes, you know, volcanoes, eruptions, glacier formations, and just a ton of other things in that course. But yeah, we learned a whole bunch. But you know, the thing is that, you know, it wasn't terribly hard as you may think it is. Learning about, you know, that wide spectrum of things, you know, it isn't as hard as you would think it is. And the professor was great. You know, the exams weren't that hard as long as you came to class and, you know, took the right notes. Yeah, as long as you came to class, you know, took the notes and studied, you know, well enough for the exams, you should have did well. Except for the last exam was pretty hard, but all the other ones were pretty easy. So, you know, that comes in at my number 5. At number 4 comes Accounting 201, and I already can see it in you guys' eyes. You guys are like, oh my gosh, you know, if accounting's only your number 4, how hard are your other classes? While yes, my other classes are hard, you know, accounting isn't as hard as you may think it is. You know, once I really stopped to think about it, it was a lot of just basic math, you know, adding, subtracting, you know, dividing and multiplying. But it's what you do with that math that's what makes the class hard. You know, figuring out, you know, what the question is asking, and once you do figuring out what you need to do to answer that question correctly, what goes where, when to do what, you know, that's the hard part. And you know, there wasn't really a lot of terminology we had to know either. And the thing that really helped make the class a lot easier than it probably would have been if I would have had someone else is actually the professor. The professor was freaking amazing. She's probably my favorite professor, you know, that I've had so far. You know, she really made sure that you understood the content. She felt very approachable if you did have a question. She told you exactly what was going to be on the exam. She didn't, you know, BS around with what was going to be on the exam, what wasn't going to be on the exam. You know, she's very straightforward. You know, very helpful. You know, my favorite professor. And in fact, I'm going to be taking her again when I take Accounting 202. So, you know, again, you know, not as hard as you think it would be, but it's still a bit challenging. But you know, overall, you know, that professor though. At number 3 comes Computer Informations 100, and yes, it is a level 100 course, but it's still pretty challenging. At least for me, it was, because I'm not that much of a computer guy. But what we pretty much did in this course, we learned a lot about the computer. I learned a lot about the computer. We learned a lot about the terminology. We learned how to use, you know, Excel, and we also learned how to do some stuff in Excel. I already said Excel, but Excel and Access. You know, that's pretty much what we did in that course. But what makes it hard is, you know, is remembering the terminology and remembering what does what in Excel and what does what in Access. Remembering, you know, the equations that you have to remember, maybe quick buttons and all that other junk. I'm just not the biggest computer guy, so that's probably what really made the class a bit challenging for me. So for these next 2 courses, it was kind of hard for me to choose which one was harder than the other or which one was easier than the other. But then, you know, I kind of stopped and asked myself, you know, which class would I rather not retake? And then it became extremely clear which one was my number 1 and which one was my number 2. So my number 1 is the one that I definitely don't want to retake. So my number 2 ends up being Econ 202 Macroeconomics. Well, there honestly I don't really have much to say. It's freaking economics. I'm just not an economics guy. I hate it. I'm not very interested in it. It's just, my goodness. And you know, the thing is that the professor was pretty good. You know, personality-wise, I'd put him at least, he's my second favorite professor. At least personality-wise, he's my second favorite professor. You know, he was a really nice guy and all this junk, you know, really cool. You know, he made the class maybe a little more interesting than it would have been if I would have had a different professor. But that doesn't really change the fact that the stuff he talked about and lectured in class didn't really transfer that well into the exam. Like the stuff he talked about in class, he kind of just expected you to get when it came to the exam. It didn't really work out that way. It would have been nice if he went over maybe some examples with us in class, explaining how maybe he was going to be wording stuff or asking stuff on the exam. I mean, he did put up some old exams that he gave out before, but you know, you guys know how people that go to college know exactly how that works. You know, them putting up like old exams don't really help that much, like at all. Don't even, only maybe work like, maybe only help me like 20% of the time. You know, otherwise, you know, those things are pretty much gosh darn worthless. So yeah, I don't like economics. Coming in at my number one, the hardest class that I took this semester is business statistics, and man, oh man, this class, it's extremely hard. This is probably the hardest class that I've taken this far, like seriously. Again, it's not the teacher, it's the class, and man, the class. And the thing about the professor is that she's a lot better teaching-wise than the econ professor that I just talked about. Like, she actually went over examples with us in class, like she literally passed out like worksheets, and we all worked together step by step to really help us understand how to answer a certain question. And when it came to helping us prepare for exams, instead of just throwing up, you know, a freaking old test, you know, a previous test that she had given out, what she did is that she actually made up, you know, some practice problems for us to go through. You know, she has the practice problems, and then she has an answer sheet showing us step by step. Well, sometimes she puts out a step by step showing us how to, you know, answer the question correctly. You know, see, that's how you're supposed to do it. You know, as a professor, that's terrific. But as good as a professor as she is, it didn't really change the fact how hard the class still is. Again, I reiterate that this is probably the hardest class that I've taken this far. It's just so hard, and I'm so glad that I'm done with it, and I never have to take another business statistics course ever again. Maybe I have to have maybe little elements of it in other courses, but I never have to take a straight up business statistics course again. See how it's making me all flustered? I freaking hate it. And there you guys have it, my third semester of college class-wise. And again, you guys, I'm just so happy that I'm finally done. I'm ready to relax. I'm ready to, you know, make some more YouTube videos to make sure to have out you guys. So be looking out for them. So I'm just so ready. So again, you guys, this is DJ Man, and I'll catch you all next time.